Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. Decampment Day 6.
It might look like there's progress, but the only progress has been moving people into places where they can't be seen.
City and police keep up efforts to clean up tents on the downtown Eastside. But is it effective? Plus, drying out after a soggy Easter weekend.
High stream advisories are in place for much of BC thanks to rain combined with snowmelt.
When to plan your next beach day as the logs make their return. And beer prices bubbling up.
Their costs are not about to go down, and we've really got to start thinking about what do we pass on to the consumer at this point.
Inflation hits breweries hard, why the cost of a pint is going up faster than usual.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us on this special Easter edition. I'm Lien Yeung. City staff and Vancouver police were back on the downtown east side today, clearing the sidewalks of tents and structures belonging to homeless residents who have set up camp. And as Joel Ballard explains, advocates say those efforts are in vain as people move from one street corner to another.
For the sixth day in a row, decampment efforts continued.
Just a headache and a hassle.
Jason Rondeau says every day is a game of cat and mouse.
On Wednesday, they booted us out of here. They told us to pack up or lose your stuff kind of thing. And so we packed up, we moved, and when they left, we came back. And the next day, they did the same thing. We packed up, we moved, we came back. And yeah, it's ongoing kind of thing.
The clearing of sidewalks began last Wednesday due to warnings of escalating crime and extreme fire risk. But advocates say residents have nowhere else to go.
If you drove down Hastings Street, it might look like there's progress, but the only progress has been moving people into places where they can't be seen.
And concerned that the decampment was rushed and poorly planned.
It could have been, something more set up in order for people to have a place to go to. And unfortunately, if you look at all the shelters, they're just jam-packed.
From the jump, the city has said shelter space is available for those who want it. But Rondeau says he's never been offered housing during the decampments. And he and Suds say the type of shelter typically offered is unlivable.
They're going to turn down housing that is cockroach infested, that is dangerous, that are fire safety issues. They're going to turn down housing where they can't have guests over, where they can't have their partners in the same room as them. They're going to turn down housing where they have to fill up their water buckets in the shower because there are no sinks in them.
Over the weekend, the BC Hospital Employees Union joined the Canadian Union of Public Employees, calling for an end to the decampments, saying that it creates greater health risks.
Folks are going to become socially isolated, exposed to the elements over a weekend where we had an atmospheric river. It's going to have big implications for their health, for their mental health, for their vulnerability to a toxic drug supply, and inevitably those pressures will come to bear on our healthcare system.
But for now, the city says it will continue to deploy quick response teams to remove structures and keep them from becoming entrenched. Joel Ballard, CBC News, Vancouver.
Former Vancouver Canucks captain Bo Horvat is walking back comments he made about fans here as he and the New York Islanders make a playoff push.
I didn't mean any disrespect to the fans of Vancouver or, my teammates or, the city of Vancouver at all.
Horvat's apology comes after he said the excitement from his new home crowd was, quote, a lot better than Vancouver. The remark drew backlash from fans across the province. Horvat was traded earlier this year to the Islanders after 9 years with the Vancouver Canucks. Well, nothing says spring quite like seeing those logs back on the beach in Vancouver. And you may have noticed that they are out now. The city says work started earlier this month, and the goal is by the end of this week for all the logs to be back on the beaches. Crews started out west by Locarno Beach and are working their way to Stanley Park. The city says it's ahead of schedule to have all the logs out by the May long weekend. And Johanna Wagstaffe joins us now. Always nice to see the logs out of log jail and being enjoyed. Hey, Joe.
I totally agree, Leanne. Yeah, here in Vancouver, it's the signs of spring, the cherry blossoms, the sounds of birds, the logs are out. Add that to the spring. We did feel a bit of spring here in Metro Vancouver today behind that weekend atmospheric river. I've got to show you where it is now, though, because rainfall warnings are now in place for the Kootenays. This is where we're looking at over 50 millimeters tonight. That's the same stalled out system that brought the 80 to 200 millimeters to the south coast this weekend. And that is where we are worried about high stream advisories. I'll talk more about that and get some sunshine back in the Long Range.
Sounds good. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Avian flu may pose little threat to humans, but it's got the attention of vaccine researchers. They are trying to stay ahead of the virus in case possible mutations widen the danger. Sam Sampson has more on the urgency of their work.
You won't find leftovers here. Instead, tools for research, dealing with a creeping influenza concern.
We have seen this contemporary H5N1 virus been circulating in the world, and now it seems this virus has gained ground in North America.
H5N1 has killed or infected more than 7 million birds in Canada since 2021. Recently, mammals have died from it, including someone's dog in southern Ontario. It died after chewing on a dead goose earlier this month. The threat to people continues to be low.
But I see the urgency of developing vaccine.
That's what's going on here, developing vaccines for birds and humans. Yan Zhou's team looks for pieces of the virus that this team can test on. The Saskatoon scientists are developing a series of vaccines against different strains of bird flu in case of virus mutation.
We're not only trying to prevent the next human pandemic, but also pandemic in our agricultural species.
At this point, Alison Kelvin says Canada's poultry industry is most at risk, which translates into economic worries. When one bird on a farm gets H5N1, the entire population may have to be culled.
So the devastation it's twofold. It's one, the amount of the death and destruction that you're confronted with in the barns, and then there's the reality of you got to clean this mess up.
Jelmer Wiersma says a vaccine preventing that experience would be great, but the challenge is finding the right combo.
If it was in a method that didn't get the birds sick, we were still allowed to export, it has to tick all the right boxes.
The Canadian Food Inspection Agency says it's developing vaccine policies with the poultry industry right now. Health Canada says it has contracts with manufacturers to quickly secure lots of human vaccines, should that be necessary. Sam Sampson, CBC News, Saskatoon.
Well, you may have noticed the cost of a pint has been going up steadily. The rise has been much more pronounced than pre-pandemic. And as Anis Hadari tells us, the reasons range from a higher cost for raw materials to the spike in grain prices after Russia invaded Ukraine.
The price of beer is a little frothier than it used to be around here.
I have a couple of drinks, and for the sake of a couple of bucks, it's not going to make or break my situation.
Many regulars at this Calgary craft brewery say that's okay because prices here are still relatively low.
Beer here is now $6 a pint. Not long ago, it was $5. And I think somewhere else it's likely $8.50.
Those prices pay for a lot at a craft brewery.
All the random ancillary things like these shower curtains that we use to cover our glassware. Literally.
Shower curtains?
Oh yeah, literally.
As inflation hit, many brewers say they kept their prices steady, but their costs aren't dropping.
So now everyone's trying to play catch up. Their costs are not about to go down, and we've really got to start thinking about what do we pass on to the consumer at this point, and that you're starting to see that now, whether it be regional players, microbreweries like us, or the bigs.
Beer inflation. It's not just bubbles. Prices are increasing by 5 or 6% recently. Before COVID, that was around 1 or 2%, sometimes even negative. Researchers say there's not just one reason.
The cans, the bottles, raw materials such as the malted barley, the hops. Basically, everything has kind of went up in price. I think that's been a big factor in these price increases that we've seen across the board.
While a federal tax on beer was capped in the recent budget at less than a penny a bottle, grain prices are still high due to the war in Ukraine. And other costs, like aluminum, aren't dropping either. So inflation on your pint might not ease for months.
It would have to get really crazy, I think, before people said, hey, I'm going to cut back.
Back in Calgary, there's a quiet acceptance of the increases.
It's bound to happen. Groceries are going up. Everything's gone up. So beer is just one of the things that is going up.
For these friends, another pint together is worth an extra $1. Anis Hidari, CBC News, Calgary.
One of the world's most revered spiritual leaders sparking controversy after a video of him suggesting a child suck on his tongue is shared on social media. We'll tell you what happened and what the Dalai Lama is saying now. That's next. And thanks for watching our commercial-free live stream. The organization in charge of tourism in Regina recently apologized for a new marketing campaign. As Alexander Kwan explains, the city's tourism body was renamed and unveiled several new slogans which have been widely criticized for being sexist.
I think we should sing it.
Experience Regina. It's a phrase that makes some people laugh. And now it's the official name of Regina's tourism organization.
And it is an opportunity. When you travel globally and people talk about it, there's a moment of, what's the city called again? It just is what it is. So don't shy away from it. It is the city's name, and we should be proud of it.
The city of Regina is not reinventing the wheel. It's capitalizing off a song that went viral years ago and got even more popular after it was played on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon in 2018.
This song is called...
It's called what?
Experience Regina.
Experience Regina.
Take a listen.
It's not like the city of Regina is the first to adopt the phrase either. Rebellion Brewing has been making merchandise with the slogan for years. Its t-shirts are shipped across the globe.
It's known, it's famous. Everywhere I travel, people want our stuff. They want the shirt off my back. There's something to it. And I know that you say, oh, we don't want to be the butt of the joke. You're not, we as individuals, we're not the butt of the joke. We're all just having a laugh, and it's incredible branding and marketing. You couldn't create this yourself.
While the song is an earworm that you can't get out of your head, the rebrand has drawn mixed reviews. Some people have pointed out the joke is a little off color. The man in charge of the new Experience Regina says that's unavoidable.
That affiliation will always be an undertone that we face. I think we should be proud of our city's name, and I think we should be proud of the city that we live in. And for those that want to have a moment of humor with it, that's not a bad thing. Embrace it. We're not changing the name of the city of Regina anytime soon.
With a new name and a new outlook, leaning into what was once a joke, supporters of the rebrand say it's time for the rest of Canada to experience Regina. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Regina.
We're sharing really important information with the public, and I feel like this is exactly what our job is, especially as the public broadcaster, especially in morning radio. That's incredibly important.
Four people have died and 9 others wounded today after a mass shooting at a bank in Louisville, Kentucky. Police say the 23-year-old suspect, an employee at the bank, has been killed.
Today, unfortunately, is a sad day within our city. At 8:38, there's a report of shots fired at Old National Bank. Officers were on scene within 3 minutes. The suspect shot at officers. We then returned fire and stopped that threat.
Among those injured are 2 police officers, one of whom was shot in the head and is in critical condition. Police say the gunman, armed with a rifle, live streamed the attack. He was killed in an exchange of gunfire with officers arriving at the scene. Today's mass shooting is now the 15th in the U.S. this year, just 2 weeks since the deadly school shooting in Nashville that killed 3 children and 3 adults. The U.S. is scrambling to uncover who leaked dozens of highly classified documents online. The cache was released on Twitter and a Russian social media channel. And as Rafi Bujikanian tells us, they reportedly contain sensitive information about Ukraine's war against Russia, Israel's spy agency, as well as Washington's relationships with several key allies.
The White House is not dismissing just how serious this intelligence leak could be.
The president has been briefed, and he has stayed briefed and in contact with national security officials throughout the weekend. The Department of Defense has referred this to the Department of Justice for a criminal investigation.
The scope of the data covering the world, from secrets relating to China and the Middle East to intelligence about Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the state of the war between the 2 countries. Reportedly including charts of anticipated weapons deliveries, as well as troop and battalion strengths. CBC News has not independently verified the documents, but what's been reported has been enough to get the Pentagon rethinking security clearances.
There have been steps to take a closer look at how the information is distributed and to whom. We're reviewing and assessing the circulation of these documents on social media sites.
Also reportedly a part of the document dump, bragging by pro-Russian hackers they've targeted a Canadian gas company's infrastructure. Though unclear if that's true, national security observers here say the country has reason to be concerned that for years Canada's intelligence agencies have issued warnings.
Canadians could pay a price for its support of Ukraine. This is absolutely something that we're going to be seeing more of in the future, and it should worry Canadians very much.
The Public Safety Department here wouldn't comment on the leaks other than stating it still has faith in its intelligence allies, including the USA. Meanwhile, one gas company, Enbridge, says it has not been hacked. Rafi Bujikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
Buckingham Palace has released new information about the coronation of King Charles III on May 6. Dominic Velitis tells us what we're learning about the crown jewels, the carriages, and the procession routes.
Palace officials say the King and Queen consort will travel to Westminster Abbey on the big day in the Diamond Jubilee state coach. Although traditional in appearance, it is the newest of royal carriages. It has air conditioning, hydraulic suspension, and even electric windows. That said, it does have some traditional elements. It will be pulled by 6 grey Windsor horses on the day. And although made of aluminium, it has pieces of wood from historic buildings and ships built into it. So bits of HMS Victory and the Mary Rose are in there. Pieces of wood too from Balmoral Castle and Canterbury Cathedral. Meanwhile, we're told the couple's route to Westminster Abbey will be much shorter than the one Queen Elizabeth II took for her coronation back in 1953. That was more than 8 kilometres. Palace officials say for practical reasons, Charles and Camilla's will be about 2 kilometres. From Buckingham Palace, they'll head down the Mall to Trafalgar Square, along Whitehall to Parliament Square, before arriving at the Abbey. Their return journey will, of course, be the same route, but in reverse. And on their way back, Charles and Camilla will travel in the notoriously uncomfortable Gold State coach. It's been used in every coronation since the 1830s, and previous monarchs, including Queen Elizabeth II, have all commented about just how uncomfortable a ride it is. But palace officials have also given us more details about the actual coronation ceremony itself. We're told it will use traditional regalia, including symbolic rings, swords, and crowns. The oldest item, though, will be a 12th century spoon, which will hold the vegan-friendly oil for the anointing, the most sacred part of the coronation. Dominic Velitis, CBC News, London.
A new surge in COVID-19 cases in India has prompted the government to direct hospitals across the country to hold mock drills. Healthcare facilities are carrying out 2 days of checks and reviews to ramp up readiness in the event of an emergency influx of patients. Hospital workers have been tasked with making sure ICUs are well prepared and COVID-19 wards are properly equipped. Medical staff are once again sharpening their skills on treating new COVID patients. India is reporting more than 5,800 new coronavirus cases today. Tibetan spiritual leader, the Dalai Lama, has apologized after a recent incident that triggered backlash. The video taken during a public gathering in February shows him kissing a child on the lips. And as Travis Danraj reports, some are calling the behavior inappropriate and disturbing, while others say the situation is being viewed out of context.
It started with a hug, but then the 87-year-old Dalai Lama asked this boy to kiss him on the lips and then suck his tongue. The video was taken in February in India, but it only surfaced recently and touched off a social media controversy.
Why is he making this kid kiss him on the lips? And why are people clapping?
If that was anyone else, if that was just a general member of the public, not some icon, you'd get nicked for that, wouldn't you?
In a statement, the spiritual leader's team says, His Holiness often teases people he meets in an innocent and playful way, even in public and before cameras. He regrets the incident. Still, child advocates have concerns.
That's not the language they use even when they do it playfully with their parents or relatives or friends. So it's very evidently something which hits you on the face and you're like, why and what has happened in this video?
Here in Toronto's Little Tibet, reaction couldn't be more different. Many in the community feel the outrage is overblown, and this all amounts to a cultural misunderstanding.
He's like a funny. He's like a funny. The Dalai Lama is always like doing the funny things.
I mean, do you think it's a mistake?
It's not a mistake. He was fun with the kids.
Is it appropriate for an 87-year-old man to ask a minor to suck on his tongue?
That's a very bad question. If you look at Buddhist style, he's sending an indirect message in a playful way, basically saying that don't abuse sexually, especially of children.
In traditional Tibetan culture, sticking out one's tongue is sometimes used as a greeting. You think it was kind of a cultural misunderstanding?
Oh yeah, 100%.
This is not the first controversy for the Dalai Lama. He's made contentious comments before, including one seen as sexist. Still, he has led Tibetan Buddhists for more than 80 years, much of that time in exile, and is yet to reveal any succession plans. Travis Danraj, CBC News, Toronto.
6:21 p.m. You're looking at a live shot from the Wickennish Inn in Tofino. A pretty nice night, all things considered, after that atmospheric river. We are going to get a bit of sun this week. Johanna Wagstaffe will be back with your forecast. Stay with us.
The movie business in Vancouver in the last 18 months has undergone as many perilous moments as Indiana Jones in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Many of the proposed blockbusters have had more fizzle than sizzle. Now their major advertising outlets have been shuttered, but they're still going strong.
It's going to make it very hard on some of the theaters. It's not been a great year in the industry.
Brian Rogers of Famous Players says increased advertising on weeklies, more radio and TV spots, and a 24-hour information hotline are helping. He says the big chains will survive because of pre-sold features and the fact they have so many outlets.
I doubt it will be a make or break situation in this market, but it will have an impact. It'll be a slower start, where with the papers, it would give us a much better kickoff. It will be more of a word of mouth and a slower start on the film.
The Odeon Group has much the same battle plan. The money is just spread around more to other advertisers. Also, Odeon has made up a playbill sheet, which will be widely distributed. Alan Wickberg, who manages the Cornet, says theater operators learned from the last Pacific Press dispute and were prepared for this one.
I would think to a certain degree there would be a certain number of people who wouldn't come down because they're used to reading the newspaper and finding out what showtimes, and that's what attracts them. But to the general movie-going audience, They like to be entertained, so they're watching TV, they're listening to the radio, and for those reasons, they're going to find out what we're playing. They're going to know.
Independent houses such as The Ridge, with a loyal clientele and less dependence on the dailies, will not likely notice the difference unless the strike lasts a very long time.
The theaters have withstood the advent of television in the past, and more recently, the introduction of videotapes and discs. And also, the second major newspaper strike in just the last few years. They'll likely survive this as well. Bob Gillingham, CBC News on Granville Street.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
The Surrey Board of Trade's Top 25 Under 25 Awards returns on May 3rd. Celebrate Surrey's role models and get your tickets today at businessinsurrey.com. And join CBC Vancouver's Gloria Makarenko at the annual Because Mothers Matter Awards on May 10th. Celebrate women's extraordinary achievements at this year's event. Learn more at mothersmattercentre.ca.
Land Back is a CBC original podcast where we uncover land theft in Canada and look at how Indigenous people are taking it all back.
And that's what empowered nations and empowered people to just literally steal land.
This is a consequence of your actions.
And it's time to give land back.
Land Back is out now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
Easter egg hunts aren't just for the kids. Some zookeepers had the excellent idea to include their animals in the tradition. So today was a busy day for staff at this Croatian zoo. Easter eggs filled with some of their favorite foods allowed predators and prey to take part in the traditional hunt. Not everyone was in a sharing mood, though. And if you're a meerkat, always a good idea to stay alert to any danger, festival or not, because no one wants to become someone else's snack. You just want to look like a snack, right, Joe? You just don't want to become someone's snack.
Exactly. I totally agree. Yeah. And I don't know. I hope my dog Rodney wasn't watching because I did not prepare his food in a perfectly wrapped egg container. So we'll just keep that between us.
He'll be happy with the doggy dish, you know?
That's exactly it. Yeah, he'll be looking for turkey leftovers. Well, hopefully everyone had a nice long weekend. I've got a pretty decent forecast ahead. I want to show you the temperatures tomorrow, though, as we ease the atmospheric river for the south coast. As I mentioned earlier, we are watching that in the Kootenays. High stream advisories in place for all of southern BC. Look at these temperatures tomorrow, though. Cooler than we've had all weekend, not hitting the double digits. We're behind that system, so a northerly flow will make it feel like a crisp Tuesday for the south coast. Rainfall totals, though, as you can see, really piling up for the Kootenays, starting to see some bullseyes there by the time we hit midweek 40 to 60 millimeter range. That's where the rainfall warnings are in place. So we'll keep that in mind with the melting snow. Snow levels up around 1,500 meters for parts of the valleys, down around 1,000 meters tonight. So it's the start of the spring melt, and we'll be keeping an eye on these kinds of weather systems in the weeks ahead. Williams Lake, Prince George, look for some instability tomorrow afternoon, but we do have some sunshine in the forecast as well. Everyone will get behind that atmospheric river as we head into midweek. A few showers for us tomorrow morning in Metro Vancouver, just lingering showers, and then sunshine, I think, by the end of the day. And look at that, a decent stretch Wednesday to Saturday. I'll have to keep my eye on how much cloud versus sun each day. We're back up to seasonal temperatures. All in all, not a bad forecast. We'll keep it moderate for now.
It's not looking too bad, Joe, but you know, I'm ready for the warmth to come. We are in April. I'm glad to see double digits finally. We can hit up the beach, perhaps. Those beach logs are waiting.
Try out the logs. I know. I'll keep you posted when we get our first 20.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'm right there, ready for something sleeveless and just general warmth would be nice.
Same.
All right, thanks, Joe. You have a great weekend.
You're welcome. You too.
All right, that does it for us this Easter Monday. Thank you so much for all of you that have tuned in. You can always find our news program online, of course, at cbc.ca/BC. Our next local newscast is tomorrow morning at 5:30 with the early edition of Stephen Quinn. Hope you had a great Easter. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Have a good night.